Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the JR Does Topics podcast. Today, I have a couple of things I want to talk about in this podcast episode. Capcom has recently released the highly anticipated Resident Evil 4 remake, and JPEG Mafia and Danny Brown has released one of the most, if not the most anticipated record of the year, Scaring the Hoes Volume 1. So yeah, let's get right into it. I have a very interesting history with the Resident Evil franchise. At first, I didn't really enjoy it because I was a person who really enjoyed horror games. Because yes, I was a pussy, and I don't know. I thought I was easily gonna get scared when playing these games. I was just gonna be scared 24/7. Like, why even play the game? Because this is gonna give you a heart attack. You're not even gonna get to the ending. But I'm glad that I gave Resident Evil another shot. It was actually with Resident Evil 7. It was my first Resident Evil game that I completed. It was honestly kind of a blast to go through. It wasn't like my favorite game or anything like that. I thought it was kind of fun. But after Resident Evil 7, it grew to Resident Evil 8. And not too long ago, I completed Resident Evil 2 like 4 times. I beat the Side A and Side B scenarios for Claire and Leon. And I also beat Resident Evil 3 and even the original Resident Evil 4. That's, I guess, how much of a spree I went when playing these Resident Evil games. That's how much it grew in me as a gamer, really. But yeah, I'm glad I played the original Resident Evil 4 game because it just kind of helped me, I guess, appreciate and understand the brilliance of the Resident Evil franchise, and it also demonstrated how far a gaming franchise can generally go. Because comparing Resident Evil 4 to the previous games, it's nothing like it. It's not even like adjacent to it at any level. It's almost like an entirely different game. It's a 180 in this series. The overall corniness and campiness of Resident Evil 4 just again did also change how the series would react and how its formula would adapt onto later games, as the protagonists and other characters around them would, I guess, have more light-hearted moments and would just see more corny jokes. And there's a lot of iconic corny jokes in the Resident Evil franchise, but Resident Evil 4 takes the cake for the one with the more lines. I mean, any Resident Evil fan can just quote anything from the game and they'll know that most of it comes from Leon himself, if not Louise, or if not Ashley. There's like a lot of iconic characters in such a small game. So fast forwarding to the Resident Evil 4 remake that Capcom has recently released, I'm glad to say that they managed to do a redemption arc this time, and just made amends for the absolute disaster fest that was Resident Evil 3. I want to start off by saying the quality of life changes. Obviously, since considering it's a remake, the graphics are a lot better than the original game. Not to discredit the original game graphics, it's not terrible or anything, but you can definitely tell that there are a lot of details in here. The death animations are kind of crazy. You can just see some of them just like begging for their life when they're like just chopped up in half or something. It's kind of scary. It's kind of creepy, but it's a cool little detail. You can see just, I would say the blood squirts and stuff like that is kind of crazy. The chainsaw dude just like chopping you up if you linger on for too long when you're trying to break free is honestly another intense and gripping feeling and change. I also just really like the whole satisfaction of just using a shotgun to just like dismember people. That sounds gonna sound crazy without context, but it's like the shotgun and stuff like that. It's just so sad. For some reason, gore in video games, especially in the Resident Evil franchise, is extremely satisfying to see. It's like it's a whole action fest. It's a whole action fest. It's a whole blast to just play through this game, just seeing those death animations pop up in here. For the people who played the original Resident Evil 4, I'm glad to tell you that you don't have to aim with those absolutely crappy controls. If you guys don't know, in the original Resident Evil 4, it played more as an arcade type of game where you just stand still and you have to aim and point at your enemy and just shoot from that area. Just like a horde of enemies just like go at you. You gotta stay in one area and just like shoot at them. But thankfully here in Resident Evil 4 and the remake, you have so much more liberty. It plays just like Resident Evil 2 and 3 in the remakes, where you can move around, you can point whoever you want to point at while walking, you can go through any area if you want to hide and shoot from there. It's just so much more. There's much more dynamic and freedom and liberty for like how you want to play, and it affects a lot of the core gameplay and how this game just moves and flows in general. And also, finally, in probably the first time in Resident Evil history, there is an actually good and reliable companion. The two companions that you get throughout the game that are Ashley and Louise are actually helpful for once. I mean, they actually just read the room and the environment. And for instance, Ashley, since she's defenseless, the point is to defend her. She'll find locations where she can hide in the meantime while you can clear the enemy. While you can clear the room, you can get rid of the enemies in the process. It's really helpful because like in the original game, it's like she's just a dumb AI who would always just get captured or killed by the enemies. I also really like that when you get to Louise's part as a companion, you can request ammo from him and he'll give you ammo. And he's an actual good companion because the guy will actually shoot and kill enemies, not like in other games where it's like the companion will just shoot enemies, but they'll do nothing of damage and won't help at all. The audio design in this game is actually very spectacular because a lot of the dialogue is actually depends on your proximity. I mean, it depends. Like if let's say for instance, Ashley or Louise is like talking to you, and let's say they're like at your left, you actually just hear them at your left, depending I guess on how far you go or how close you're at. It's like you can hear the audio pan more to the left. I know that games already do this and stuff. I know it's like 2023, but the cool thing about this is that it's like if you're like close to them at the left, like you just hear them only at the left side, not the right side. It's like in the other games, so you get like perfect mixing, and they're like God knows where they are, and it's like perfect audio and perfect quality, and it's like, you know, like bro, I'm in one room, you're like down there, like it's I say it's more realistic. Despite these amazing quality of life changes, and I guess just how lively and more realistic this game plays out, it has some cons. Unfortunately, it does have some cons. Personally, for me, as someone who was a huge fan of the snarkiness and the corniness of the original Resident Evil 4, I'm kind of missing that in this game. I mean, they do try and they do attempt to drop some corny lines here and there to, I guess, keep the humor alive, and I do appreciate that a lot. I mean, you can definitely hear them trying, especially the voice actor for Leon, which I think he does a great job in this game. But it's like it does stick, but it's like it's missing some iconic bits and lines. You know, it's like it's missing the iconic, the iconic exchange between, I don't know if it was Salazar or another character where he says "No thanks, bro," and it's like those awkward lines. It's like it adds so much color and texture to the original game, where it's like you're watching a campy horror like action like Evil Dead film. That's what I want to say. It's almost like an Evil Dead film. It's ridiculously campy and funny, and it's like horror like at the same time, and it's fun to like I guess watch and play. Again, it's like it's missing some iconic bits that the people who only play the remake and the remake only and don't play the OG will absolutely miss and will not know that they're missing out on a huge portion of the identity of the Resident Evil 4 game. You know, I typically am not critical when it comes to voice acting because I know everybody's playing their part, and I know that it's hard to, I guess, mimic a person's voice, especially when it's a more unrealistic scenario. Like, let's say, for instance, anime. You know, a lot of English dubs in anime or just other shows get hate because it's either just not synchronized correctly or the reactions and emotions of character are just extremely bizarre and just do not match the original character's voice or I guess tone. But in this instance, it's like, I mean, everyone did a splendid job. Let me put out everyone except the voice actress for Ada Wong. I do not like to critique voice acting, but it's like the voice acting for Ada Wong, the remake, is like questionable. It's almost like if you were to cast like a retired like 50-year-old mom to like read off a script, and like this, if you were to tell her to like convey emotions, or I guess try to simulate, I guess try to interpolate of what their idea of an Asian American supermodel would. I don't know how to I guess correctly describe it. It's like it just sounds boring. Is what I'm trying to say. It sounds boring. It sounds like the voice actress is falling asleep between her lines. It does not sound convincing at all. I don't know why they replaced her voice actors from Resident Evil 2 remake when it was absolutely perfect. It like if you were to compare the voice actors from Resident Evil 2 remake to the original Resident Evil 4, they're actually pretty similar in a lot of ways. Like she captured the sexiness, she captured the whole, I guess, the sassiness, the whole, like, Amida Wong type, like the character in general, the tone, the mood. She captured everything perfectly. But just in this game, it's like she's bored. It sounds boring. It doesn't. It sounds boring. It doesn't sound convincing at all. Not even the slightest. Another con that I have with this game is that it cuts some content. I mean, I know that a remake is not going to necessarily add every single tiny bit, or I guess tiny, yeah, just like tiny bit or tiny slither of content from the original game or project they're basing the stuff on, but at the very least, just capture every single moment that made it extremely special. Which don't get me wrong, this game does a fantastic job of capturing many of the aspects that made the game special, many of the moments that made the game special. Even though they do tweak it and write some new things and just, I guess, sort of change it for, I guess, a more exaggerated and more actiony like scenario, which I do think it's great. At the same time, I do like their take, even though there's some moments where it's like I think I appreciate the original game's take more than this. I still respect and appreciate the vision they were going for in this game, which I think a lot of it is badass. But there's some cut content, especially, I'm not gonna spoil it because if the people listening to it, if you haven't played original Resident Evil 4, I want you to play it. But I'm just saying there's a specific, I guess, sort of like mini game puzzle boss fight, to put it in other words, where it's completely cut from this game. I don't know why, because it was like one of the funnest parts, because it was like one of the best parts of the original Resident Evil 4. There was so much intensity going around that puzzle boss fight. And however, to sort of, I guess, counter this argument, I will say that the remake does do a better job at exploring these characters' arcs, the narrative arcs. It actually gives Luis a great arc this time around. Not to discredit, I guess, his character from the original Resident Evil 4. He was a badass in the original too. But it's like in this one, we get to, I guess, hear more details about his character, and not just two things about it like we did in the original one. We get to hear an actual, like, fleshed out narrative. You guys know I am a huge OST fan. I love the OST from video games, and I'm a huge music nerd myself. And coming from a music producer as well, I really adore the original Resident Evil 4's soundtrack and OST. It was both like ominous yet kind of meditative at points, especially in the safe room or when you're buying stuff from a merchant. That just sounds like it teleports you to another dimension. I'm glad that they sort of kept that sort of vibe here, even though they went for a more theatrical approach in this sense, especially in the boss fights where it sounds like a James Bond type theme. I think the OSC still slaps in here. It's really great. It reminds me a lot of the Final Fantasy VII remake with the grand strings, the intensity, going more for, I guess, a minor scale. It matches the tone of the game a lot, especially since Capcom went for a darker, more, as I said, a more bleak approach with this remake. Before I wrap up this review, I also want to add that there's a lot of replay value in here. There's a lot of distinctive ways you can play this game. There's a new Mad Chainsaw mode, which is like the hardest difficulty of the game. It's like beyond the professional difficulty, where it's like limited saves. I think if you die, you have to restart. It's very intense. It's very intense, and it's obviously for the extremely, like, big aficionado for the game who just knows the game from beginning to end, just like without missing any tiny detail. But overall, the Resident Evil 4 remake is a great way to play Resident Evil 4 for the newcomers who haven't played the original Resident Evil 4. And even the people who have played the original Resident Evil 4 will definitely appreciate how much of a drastic change and how faithful it's remained to its original material when, I guess, experiencing this whole new world that Capcom created. The light quality has improved, the dynamics are much better, everything runs smoother. You can customize how you want your game to run and stuff, obviously, because it's a more modern consoles and stuff, and the controllers are not as janky as the original one. And yeah, I think everything has improved in some sort of way, even though it has some issues. That's cutting content, questionable voice acting, and some other things. I think that as a whole, as a package entirely, I think it's definitely worth your $60 or whatever price you plan on spending this game on. So what would I rate this game on a scale of 1 to 10? I'm going to go with an 8.5 so far because I've played this thing only once, and as I said, I'm starting my second playthrough. I think it's a banger game, and I definitely think you should not miss out on this game. So now for our next and final topic, Danny Brown and JPEG Mafia has recently released their new collaborative effort, Sharing the Hose Volume 1. Now, these two have been just in the talks and in the works of making a collaborative record since God knows when. It doesn't matter because we finally have it right here. I'm not even fooling around. Like, when the lead singles for these records dropped, I was praying that this record actually dropped because it was too good to be true is what I'm trying to get at. Because Lean Beef Patty was an amazing banger song. I know people had problems with the mixing and it was, I guess, too short. But personally, I think the absolutely like just blaring, like just in your face instrumental and just Peggy's and Danny's just like throwing bars at each other and stuff like that, and just dividing the segments it's almost like having a migraine or a stroke. Like, imagine having a migraine or as a stroke, like as an instrumental for your song. That's how it feels like, but in a very, very good way. It's like a very like addictive. I don't even know how to put it that way. It's just like all over the place, but it's all over the place in a very good way, where it's like you don't get bored at all. It's exciting. It's a banger. You can play it in the whip. You can play it while you're working out, and you get like a huge energy boost. Automatic. With Scaring the Hose, the self-titled song, it literally opens up with someone's cheeks getting clapped to then like a guitar playing in the background with this weird detuned noise in the background. It just like morphing into a huge punk type hip hop track where you hear these voxes in the background with the what and stuff like that. It's very cool. It's very creative. And once again, it's a very short song. It's only 2 minutes, 20 seconds. And the thing is that with this short window, they accomplished so much. Something that they accomplished much more than a lot of collaborative efforts that a lot of rappers would do. Not to throw shade at that, but it's like they do a lot with a short window. They don't waste any second. It's like they're racing to the finish line. Thing is that I'm happy to report that it is even better than the lead singles following this thing up, and I am completely enamored. And I want to just do a quick checkup. It is right as I'm recording this podcast episode. It's March 31st. This record, I think, dropped March 24th or 5th. Do not crucify me if I get that wrong, but it dropped last Friday. The thing is that it's like I have been playing this album almost twice a day, because it's only 36 minutes long, only 14 tracks long, and the replay value is off the freaking roof. And as I said, it's only been like 3 or 4 months into 2023, and this record so far might be my favorite record of the year. Like, I might throw it out there right now. Like, it is a huge front runner for album of the year. I had Paramore, This Is Why, for a while, for a short period of time, as an album of the year, because I could not stop replaying the album. But Peggy and Danny slid through. I'm sorry, Paramore, you got dethroned there, but your run was great, and your run is epic, and This Is Why is a great album. Definitely check it out. But yeah, man, Scaring the Hose, Volume 1. The mere fact that it's called Volume 1 just is insane. That proves that we're going to get other volumes to this, which I cannot wait to hear. But yeah, I'm gonna talk about this record. The production in here is as crazy as the singles leading up to it. There are a lot of like extremely distorted kicks, distorted basses, distorted sample chops. I mean, for instance, let's take Step a Pig. The leads in there are crazy. They are big. They are like grandiose, but they're dirty and raw and like just like almost like the side chain with the kicks and the synths, and it's like the weird awkward like drums playing there. It's like it has so much texture and vibe and just like destruction to the atmosphere that Peggy is trying to create in this track with Danny Brown. Garbage Pail Kids, yes, that's the title of one of the songs. It's crazy with the sample chops once again. Like, this guy sampled a Japanese commercial involving, I guess, a bunch of kids chanting, and he turned it into like a dirty, grimy beat where it's like these kids chanting this crazy 808 to then cutting to this guitar solo with these just kids chanting again in the background. It's almost like if it was like ducking, like it's almost like a trance side chain type position. It's great, and it's just energy. It's just basically like just cocaine for the ears. It's drugs to the soul, addictive, but just good drugs. If that makes any sense. It's like good medicine to the soul to just listen to these two just like hash it out on this instrumental. And I love how Peggy just switches up his flow. And it's like Danny does a fantastic job in opening this track. It's amazing. But then just like he passes the torch to Peggy, and it's like Peggy is going insane on this track with his flow. He is pissed off at something, at somebody, like he always is in all of his records, and it's amazing. The payoff is great. And I think he does throw shade. I think at this song, another song, I think he says, how are you 30? How are you 30 and not getting paid? You know, like how are you 30? How are you 30 and you're broke? You rappers can't even stay on beat, which is probably alluding to, I guess, the Arm and Hammer situation that he addressed in LP, a Rebound, I believe. Maybe I might be tripping, but I think he's trying to throw shots once again at Billy Woods and Elucid. Hopefully he isn't, but it's like the rage he has for specific rappers is like so enticing, but yet like so intriguing to just listen to, because it's like this guy will not let it go. But not only does he not let it go, he doesn't let it go with a sick ass flow. I'm sorry, but this flow is amazing. The flow that he spit was crazy. It's like he's angry and tired of just, getting shit on, and he's like, he just wants to talk his shit. That's what he wants. He just wants to talk his shit. It's kind of funny, the only feature in here is Red Veil, and I've been following Red Veil for quite a while, and I really did enjoy Learn to Swim. It's one of the best albums of the past year, but just hearing him in this specific song is great, because he was obviously a fan of JPEG Mafia and Danny Brown, and just, I guess, the energy he brings up in here is just only positive vibes. And Peggy, understanding how Red Veil is as an artist, he slows down the tempo, he gives Red Veil room to breathe, then speeds it up, and then Red Veil goes crazy with his flow. And while his verse is kind of short, I kind of wish he went on for another minute and a half or something like that, or just another minute. I still feel that he added something of value to the song. It's like he kept on with the whole, like sort of like shouty but like hype type flow, and that's what I really love about his part in here. But yeah, Kingdom Hearts Key, which is the song where Reveal is featured on, is an absolutely insane song. It's like I think he actually chopped up the Kingdom Hearts sample. Maybe I'm tripping. I'm not deep into Kingdom Hearts, but it's like the sample picks for him is like it's ethereal, it's like breathy, it's airy, it's kind of light on the ears. It's almost like if you were like levitating. And the funny thing is that after levitating, these hard ass like trap s drums drop, this hard ass bass side change to this kick, and it's like it's honestly amazing. It's amazing to hear this. And Peggy is sort of like edging. He's sort of like teasing us for this thing here. He's like, it's like flexing his muscles. And the sample is rearranged here in this mini breakdown segment. And Peggy is going off on the drums. He's like going this insane flow. And it's like, it's crazy. Because once again, it's just JPEG Mafia just showing how much of a boss and how much of a fantastic producer he is. I would crown him as possibly the best producer to come out of this generation. Period. Yeah, I want to talk a bit more about Danny Brown too. I've been talking about Peggy for almost the entire thing, but Danny Brown shines a lot. I think Orange Juice Jones, well, sure, it isn't that much of an intense sample flip as compared to the other songs in this record. I still think the Michael Jackson sample is great. I like how he's letting it play through. I think it was slightly pitched up, or if not really pitched up, but it gives a lot of room for like just Danny Brown to just talk about whatever he wants to talk about. And it's like, it's a very erotic and raunchy song, and using a Michael Jackson sample is like the perfect choice when talking about these subjects, so it's sex and taboo-esque topics. And it's like, I don't know, it's like Danny Brown just telling his whole like sex life story. It's like very like funny, but at the same time very like relatable in a sense, I guess, of where he's coming from. And sure, his verse went on for a bit too long, but I think Peggy's part in here was actually pretty good too. But at the same time, it's like I kind of wanted to go. I wanted to hear Danny go that long too, because I was like, we're a lot of the record, a lot of the enjoyability comes from Peggy. So it's like I wanted to also hear an equal balance with Danny Brown. And also talking about balancing the powers, I really adore how Peggy gives Danny Brown his own side too. It doesn't feel like Danny's just being cast out. It's like Danny is giving his part too. Even in the songs that Peggy takes a lot of the space, or Peggy just, I guess, takes a lot of the light, a lot of the shine. Like Danny just slides into him. Danny slides into him, and when he slides, it is extremely memorable. His hook on the song "Perfect" is absolutely just sticky and amazing, and the oh, yeah, I see what you're doing. Oh, this, like that flow and that whole charisma that he has. I mean, aside of the intro verse that he gives off in the track, I think just that hook and that chorus segment with the horns playing in the background, that it sounds like it sounds like an NFL Super Bowl type match. It's insane. It's great. It brings up a lot of just hype ass vibes. And I'm not kidding. I played this specific song 10 times in a row when I hit the gems and legs. Like, bro, going on a leg press, hearing this song, trust me, it's only like 2 minutes long and it has so much replay value. And the energy that these two bring out together is, it's amazing. And Danny's, as I said, the chorus and hook segment is just sticky. It's just memorable. It's like, it's great. And man, Peggy's flow on the song, it's like, wow. It's insane. It's like the second quarter even gets better than the first half. It's crazy. I've replayed his verse God knows how many times because this was just that hard and it was that amazing. I was absolutely laughing my ass off when I heard "God Loves You." This song is like just it's almost like ironic because it's like they're quite literally. I mean, Danny has like a whole verse where he's like using these like Bible metaphors to describe eating someone out. I think he said, if you're on your period, don't worry, because I'm gonna split that Red Sea, something like that along those lines. And he said, eat your ass like a cannibals. I think that bar, eat your ass like a cannibals, was in Step Pig. But bro, the that one line where it was like the Red Sea line is insane. It was completely funny, and again, it's ironic because it's like, it's a holy gospel song and playing the background, and I just singing the lungs out, and it's like Danny Brown just starts rapping about different positions and fucking bitch. It's so funny. Once again, like the whole, I guess, attitude of just like being carefree, not caring about just what other people think, and not taking yourself too seriously in this record, it's just absolutely stellar and absolutely amazing. I mean, to add more to that sheer irony this record carries on, I mean, the names of a lot of these songs I was already mentioning. I mean, Jack Harlow Combo Meal is a crazy name. And we have what I would say my personal favorite name out of this entire track list, Ho, parenthesis, Heaven on Earth. And it sounds exactly like you think it does, bro. Like the organ arrangement that it has in the sample, and just the gospel choir playing in the background as well. It's just like kind of peaks in at times. It's crazy. It's crazy, and it just proves that you can make super jokey songs without sounding like it's like jokey songs, to put it at that. It's like they're dead on serious and dead on sight of what they want to say and what you want to communicate, but they're not, I guess, taking it extremely seriously that it's just like it's an entire concept album. It's just them messing around, throwing ideas to the wall, and I've just, because they're insanely chronically online and in digital media and stuff like that, they're just, I guess, putting what they learned from that into this record, and it's just a beautiful morph. It's almost like a beautiful disfigured baby, to put it at the least, I guess. So yeah, what would I give this record a scale to 10? I'm honestly feeling like a really strong 9 out of 10 on this one. It's fantastic. It's phenomenal. It's dumb. It's stupid, but at the same time, it's quirky and just has so much to offer, even with short time span. It's insanely replayable. I feel like I can play this almost at any occasion. I mean, obviously, I'm going to scare the hose away when I'm playing this in public, but it's like I feel that I can play any of these songs and just listen to any of these songs on a loop for God knows how long. That's how insanely good this record is, to put it. But yeah, that's all I had to say for this episode. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. It was pretty lengthy, but I really want to discuss these topics at length. And hopefully you had a great time tuning in and listening to this. I know I have been kind of inconsistent when dropping these podcasts in a regular schedule, and I am hoping that I can definitely improve on that schedule and drop more episodes, because it is really fun making these episodes, and it's a much easier process instead of sitting down and going to, I guess, in a much higher production and spending more time editing that. And these things are just much easier to publish. But yeah, hopefully I can actually maintain a schedule and be more consistent with what I'm dropping. With all that being said, I'll see you guys on our next episode. Stay safe, everybody.